Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith on blogtalkradio.com, and it is February 21st, Sunday morning, 6 o'clock in the morning here in Calgary, Alberta. And I'm just happy to be here. And it's early. I just woke up, and so my voice is hopefully coming through clearly. It's just great to be here. I'm glad that you can be here, and I'm very thankful for your support and everything. And this is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is up to us. And on Sundays, I've been covering, because I think it's so important and quite related to the topic of child abuse and human rights abuses. We're talking about drug addiction and alcohol and drug addiction while coping with other issues, such as maybe mental issues, mental stress, PTSD, and different things like that. And so I found an article on substance abuse and mental health off of Help Guide, and that was www.helpguide.org. And it's called Overcoming Alcohol and Drug Addiction While Coping with Depression or Anxiety. And because for the last, I don't know how many Sundays, we've been covering, drug abuse and addiction. And I just think it's so important because so many people really are suffering with this issue, and people's lives are being ruined by it. And I know mine could have been completely ruined by it. And I know there's family members whose lives were actually completely lost due to it. So I think it's so important to talk about it, right? A lot of people are dealing with this or know someone who's going through this, and it's just important that we know and recognize, that there's help out there first of all, and that it's really up to us to make the decisions that we need to make if we want to have a good life. So we have to really, if you want to have a good life, you have to make the step, take the act to have it. And a lot of times, if you grow up in an abusive home, you grow up not being shown or given the coping skills and also life lessons on how to deal with things and how make the right decisions for yourself. And a lot of times people do drugs because they were abused. And I know that was my case. And so that's what we're looking at today again for a half hour. We'll be on for a half hour today. And I just hope this information helps you out. I know it sure does help me. And I've been drug, and really I don't drink very much, and I don't allow myself to. And I've been drug free since the age of 21, so it's a long time ago. But I smoke cigarettes, and I'm still trying to quit that. And I did quit for 14 months, but now, because of some stress and stuff, I started smoking again. But, I'm going to quit the cigarettes as well because I want to be a non-smoker. And so my voice is just so much better and I feel better when I'm not smoking. So, we all have issues that we're dealing with. It's very hard, and, we're all walking out a daily walk, and that's why I thought this article was really important. So, I'm glad you could be here. This is not a professional show. I just say this on every show, just to listen at your own discretion. I'm not a professional counselor or therapist. I don't have any certificates in those areas. And, I cover all topics of abuse and issues surrounding abuse and related topics. And abuse is a very sensitive subject, so if you're a young person listening to this on a player somewhere, under the age of 18 or even younger especially, the show is really ultimately about you. But the thing is some of the topics are very sensitive, and a lot of young people might have questions, and they might not understand the material that I'm presenting, and they might have a question. So just make sure you have someone to listen to this with before you actually start listening to it, and maybe have a friend or counselor, someone who's a mentor in your life, a parent, if you have a parent who cares about what you're listening to, which I hope you do, and they can listen to it with you, and then you can decide together whether or not you should really be listening to it, and whether or not then if you have questions, they can help you find the answers, right? That's the only issue. I just think that abuse is such a sensitive topic. It's scary to a lot of people who haven't heard anything about it, and a lot of people haven't because nobody likes talking about it. So that's the whole issue. That's why I'm doing this show. I'm a student at MRU part-time. I'm in between courses right now. And I thought, while I'm not going to school and stuff, I may as well do something, in my research. I do a lot of research online, and I thought, why not bring some of this information out to people, and just so that they know and understand, that they're not alone when they're suffering with this stuff, and there is help, and we all deserve to have a good life. So that's why I'm doing the show. So if it's a topic that you think might trigger you or cause you to be, down or depressed or whatever, please turn it off because it's not worth listening to in that case, right? But if you're feeling comfortable with the topic, then you can just, I welcome you to just tune in and be part of the show. And if you would like to be on the show, you need to get a hold of me ahead of time because I have people calling in saying rude things, and it's just, this is too important. I've lost, 2 of my brothers are dead due to drug use. One of my best friends in the whole world was shot dead in his driveway from a drug deal gone bad. I've had family members lost from drunk driving accidents, been killed by drunk drivers. Abusive home. I've had enough garbage in my life without a bunch of jokesters making fun of it. So that's why I don't take any calls unless you're going to phone in first and let me know ahead of time by email whether or not you want to be on the show and who you are and if you have questions and stuff, because I welcome people to my show, but just not jokesters because we don't have any time for this. And so we'll get right on with this article. This was at helpguide.org, www.helpguide.org. It's called Substance Abuse and Mental Health: Overcoming Alcohol and Drug Addiction While Coping with Depression or Anxiety. So it's a code disorder. It's a dual diagnosis, right? They call it. One doesn't necessarily cause the other, but when they're together, the drug abuse, and then you might have, I might have an issue with depression or something, and if I'm doing drugs, they don't necessarily cause each other, but you have to treat both symptoms, right? And you have to treat both issues. And I think this article is really helpful. I know that, I could have used it years ago, and I actually decided on my own to get off drugs and straighten out my life because my brother committed suicide when I was 21. I was about 20. I was almost turning 21, and he was 33, and I thought, I could go that way. I could easily end up like that, and I thought, no, I'm not doing it. I want to have a good life, so I actually stopped hanging around with the people I was hanging around with, just stayed home, worked, and got off the drugs, and decided to start walking in a positive forward direction because no one in my life had actually given me that opportunity as a child. And then growing up as a young person, I was just trying to destroy myself because I was thinking I was going to be able to get back at my parents for what they had done to me and our whole family for that matter. And so then I realized that I was just hurting myself and that my parents actually didn't care. So I wasn't really hurting them, I was hurting myself. And I thought, man, I want to have a good life. What is going on here? Like, I haven't had one 1 year go by that I could actually say, this is good, this is a good life, So I thought, oh, this is just crazy. I just want to live like a normal person. I don't want to be out doing drugs in the middle of the night and being on the streets and hanging around with people with guns and I thought, this is crazy. Why am I doing this? And I had to seriously sit down and think about what the issues were underneath of that, and then realize that no one was going to get that. Well, no one was going to be able to really hand me that good life. I was going to have to do it myself. And so that was the choice I made, and it was hard. I can't even, I have to agree with everybody out there who's ever come off of a drug or alcohol situation. It's hard. We know it is. But I always look to these people who have already done it. The people out there who have done it and are actually doing like talks and stuff, saying, look, you can do it. And I look to those people and I say, man, they did it, so I can do it, right? And that's just the whole issue. We can do it. We have to reach out for help where we can get it, and really look inside of ourselves and decide for ourselves what kind of life we want to have. So important, right? So we'll continue on. We were looking at just the first page the other day of this article. There is hope. Combined treatment is best. Relapses are part of the recovery process. So it says, don't get discouraged if you relapse. Slips and setbacks happen, but with hard work, most people can recover from their relapses and move on with recovery. And peer support can help. So like joining a support group or Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, or NA, Narcotics Anonymous, right, gives us a chance to lean on others and to know what they're going through. And so I highly recommend support groups. I belong to a lot of child abuse survivor support groups, and they really help. It does help to have someone to talk to when you actually feel like you just can't cope. Instead of doing something stupid or hurting yourself or just continuing on in that depressive state, you can actually find someone to talk to. And these people, they care because that's why they're there, right? And then what comes first, the substance abuse or the mental health problem? We looked at that last Sunday, and they said alcohol or drugs are often used to self-medicate the symptoms of depression or anxiety. So they don't one doesn't cause the other one, but it's just when they're related, it's just a dual diagnosis, and then it's a real it's harder to work through when we're suffering from depression and stuff, or post-traumatic stress disorder, or any number of psychological issues, mental disorders, if we're adding drug use to it, it just makes it that much worse. And then if we're on medication and stuff like that to help us with, antidepressants or anti-anxiety pills and mood stabilizers and stuff, if we're drinking or doing other illicit drugs, it just it says it makes them less effective, so then we can't function like we should be, which is to have a healthy life and live a healthy lifestyle, right? So it's so important. I see so much stuff in the news, about people doing crazy things and because of the drug use, and I know in my own life, I grew up around that stuff, and so I saw people doing the craziest things, and it's just sad to see people's lives ruined by drug addiction, drug abuse, and most of it was all caused because of emotional problems like abusive home situations, and also just depression and stuff like that. So we'll read here right from the page. You can follow me along if you'd like on that website. Recognizing and diagnosing co-occurring disorders. It says it can be difficult to diagnose a substance abuse problem and a co-occurring mental health disorder, such as depression, anxiety, or bipolar disorder. It takes time to tease out what might be a mental disorder and what might be a drug or alcohol problem. And it says complicating the issue is denial. Denial is common in substance abuse. It's hard to admit how dependent you are on alcohol or drugs or how much they affect your life. Denial frequently occurs in mental disorders as well, and the symptoms of depression or anxiety can be frightening, so you may ignore them and hope they go away. I know that's what I did. Or you may be ashamed or afraid of being viewed as weak if you admit the problem. And that's so true. There's a whole lot of social stigma around, the whole idea of depression, anxiety, bipolar, I forget, there's a new name for that, and different things like that. It's there's a whole stigma, and then you think, well, what would people think of me if I actually, go get help for this? And it's like, we have to say, who cares what people think about us? If we want to have a good life, the people in our lives who would think negatively about us, really, they wouldn't deserve our time anyway. We need to find people in our life that really care and would be there for us regardless, and say, look, that's great, you're reaching out and getting some help from that, and maybe I can help you just by being a friend, and I'll go with you to the meetings and whatever, right? You want friends in your life that actually care. And I know it's hard to find friends like that, but you have to keep reaching out, because I know I've run into about 200-300 of them, and recently, and just because I started reaching out, and I start to see that, wow, there's so many people that do actually care. And for years I was just alone, and because I didn't trust anybody, and I just didn't want any more abuse in my life, and so I thought, I'll just deal with this on my own. And it was sad. It was a sad and very lonely time, and I just don't wish that for anybody. I think everybody needs to reach out and get some help. And really, I'm not beyond professional help either. I think it's great. So admitting you have a problem is the first step on the road to recovery. That's what they say. Just remember, substance abuse problems and mental health issues don't get better when they're ignored. In fact, they're likely to get much worse. Excuse me. You don't have to feel this way. Admitting you have a problem is the first step towards conquering your demons and enjoying life again. It says, first of all, here's some stuff that they actually talk about. Consider family history. Consider your sensitivity to alcohol or drugs. Look at symptoms when you're sober. And review your treatment history, right? So consider family history. It says if people in your family have grappled with either a mental disorder such as depression or an alcohol or drug addiction, you have a higher risk of developing these problems yourself. And I know myself, look, my parents were, they had all kinds of problems. My dad was borderline schizophrenic. My mom was depressed. She had it was what do they call that? Depression. It's actually, it's a diagnosis, right? She was depressed, and but they didn't do drugs or alcohol. They didn't drink or anything like that. they were just suffering with a lot of emotional and psychological issues. But the kids, my brothers and stuff, they started doing drugs at a really young age. Because I remember when I was about 4 or 5, they were already doing drugs, and that would have only made them about 11, 12 years old. And so some of the siblings that were they were quite a bit older than me. Some of the other ones had already moved out, but the next ones up, they were 11, 12, 13 years old. They were already doing drugs. And, I always said to myself as I grew up and watched what they were doing to their lives, I thought, I'm never going to do drugs, right? I kept saying that to myself. And they never offered me really, except for when I was little, one time they passed me a a doob or something in the bedroom or something like that. But I think I was only about 4 years old, so I didn't know what was going on. But when I was older, I of course they would not offer me those, right? Then and they would have actually probably killed me had they found out that I was doing drugs. But I always said I would never do drugs, and then when I hit 12 years old, I started doing drugs, and just about every day was high on something for years until I was about 20, 21 years old. So, it's sad, and people's lives just get so ruined by it. And our parents couldn't cope, and they didn't know how to help us out. They couldn't help each other. They couldn't help the family, and so we all existed in this, very in this mess of a family, right? And so it was hard. It did have an effect on the family. Consider your sensitivity to alcohol or drugs. Are you highly sensitive to the effects of alcohol or drugs? Have you noticed a relationship between your substance use and your mental health? For example, do you get depressed when you drink? So that's what they're just asking, like for us to take a look at our sensitivity to alcohol or drugs and what happens like after we use drugs. Does it cause us to be more depressed or stuff like that? So there's a relationship between the substance use and our mental health, right? So that's something we can look at. Look at symptoms when you're sober. While some depression or anxiety is normal after you've stopped drinking or doing drugs, if the symptoms persist after you've achieved sobriety, you may be dealing with a mental health problem. So I think that's interesting because I know after I got off the drugs at the age of 21, really, it was about 21, I noticed like I was still very depressed and had a lot of anger issues, anxiety problems, post-traumatic stress disorder and stuff like that. And of course it was all undiagnosed because I wouldn't go get any help. But the aftermath of the abuse that I suffered as a child and watched my whole family suffer, really, domestic violence and whatnot, it really, after I was off the drugs, that stuff didn't go away. So, at that point, I really should have reached out and got some help. But our family had been always so, paranoid about getting help. My parents almost lost us as children. We were almost taken away. And they didn't want any help because they knew if they, I was the youngest, so once I was grown up, it wouldn't have mattered. They wouldn't have lost their children because most of us moved out of the house. But it was just ingrained in us that we wouldn't get any help and that we'd just deal with this life that we were living, right? And so it's so sad when people just know that they don't think that there's any help or hope for them, right? And because there is help and there is hope, right? And you have to hang on to that. You have to hang on to every bit of it because it's so true. There is help, and I've seen lots of people and known lots of people who have come out of a drug addiction and are doing great, and it's awesome. It's awesome to see someone get their life that they deserve to have, and so, we have to work for it. That's for sure. Review your treatment history. It says, have you been treated before for either your addiction or your mental health problem? Did the substance abuse treatment fail because of complications from your mental health issue or vice versa? So I've never been treated before, so I don't know I wouldn't be able to expound upon that. But I guess it's, it's something to look at for sure. So it says signs and symptoms of alcohol or drug addiction. If you're wondering whether you have a substance abuse problem, the following questions may help. The more yes answers, the more likely your drinking or drug use is a problem. So it says here, have you ever felt you should cut down on your drinking or drug use? Have you ever tried to cut back but couldn't? Do you ever lie about how much or how often you drink or use drugs? I used to do that. Have your friends or family members expressed concern about your alcohol or drug use? Do you ever feel bad, guilty, or ashamed about your drinking or drug use? So bad, guilty, or ashamed about it, right? On more than one occasion, have you done or said something while drunk or high that you later regret? And have you ever blacked out from drinking or drug use? Has your alcohol or drug use caused problems in your relationships? And has your alcohol or drug use gotten you into trouble at work or with the law? So if we answer yes to quite a few of these questions, then we could pretty much say that, yeah, we do have a problem, right? And so many times people don't want to admit that they have a problem. I know when I was growing up, my parents didn't really care what I was doing. But the thing is there was a few times that my mom told me that she wished I would stop getting high. She had no idea the amount of drugs that I was doing or even what kinds I was doing. She knew my brother was on drugs because he had bags of pills around the place. He would bring in big, huge bags of, marijuana plants and stuff and hide them in the closet. And of course, she'd find them. And they were just so huge, big old black garbage bags, right? But it was just pretty sad. And but I never wanted to, have much to do with what he was doing, because he was a pill popper and I wasn't interested in that. And as far as the pot went, he would have killed me if I would have touched his stuff, because he used to threaten us with knives and stuff. He threatened to kill my sister one time because she wouldn't take him to go rob a store and stuff like that. He was very unstable, and he was violent, and I loved him dearly, but he had so many problems, right? So I would have never touched his stash for sure. And so, I just got mine elsewhere. But the thing is my mom didn't know exactly what I was up to, and but she did ask me to stop. And at that point, I just told her, the reason I'm doing this is because of you and Dad. So I was blaming them and actually trying to get back at them, right? And there wasn't much they could do, because they actually knew what they had done, right? And because it was so evident with the other brothers who had been doing drugs for years and years, right? It was just very evident. So it says, have you ever blacked out from drinking or drug use? And I know I used to, and I used to wonder how I got home and where I had been for a few days, and it was pretty bad. I was a young girl, out running around on the streets, running around parties and stuff like that, being left at places where I didn't know where. I'd wake up in the morning, wasn't sure where I was, and I'd look outside and I'd be like, man, I got to try to get home. I don't even know what part of the city I'm in, and just stuff like this. And it's very scary. And, young people out there, so many of them are suffering with living in homes that are abusive and being thrown out on the street. And it's so sad. And then they go and they get involved with drugs, because it's just for so many reasons they do it. And it's so sad to see it. And, if you're dealing with this, make sure you do reach out and get some help. You want some good people in your life, good influences in your life, people who can help you, right? Because no one deserves to be on the street. I see people all the time around here even, and I just want to take them all home and help them out, and I wish I could. But they have to want to get that help, right? My brothers, one died in a shelter here in Calgary. He was 43 years old. And he was the one who was a pill popper. He had continued that on for, another 20 years or so, and ended up dying of a drug overdose in a shelter here in Calgary. His life was just ruined, and my other brother committed suicide at the age of 33, and up here in Calgary as well. And he was a cocaine addict, and he just could not cope, and had a lot of, emotional, disorders like depression, and maybe some bipolar, who knows, right? So it's just so sad. So my voice is so bad this morning. Sorry about that. Signs and symptoms of common co-occurring disorders. The mental health problems that most commonly co-occur with substance abuse are depression, anxiety disorders, and bipolar disorder. So common signs and symptoms of depression: feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, loss of interest in daily activities, inability to experience pleasure, appetite or weight changes, sleep changes, loss of energy, strong feelings of worthlessness or guilt, and concentration problems. And I know, most of those I experienced for many, many years, and it was just really a depressed state because of my family's situation, and also kind of could have been sort of more of something wrong in the brain, because I know my dad was borderline schizophrenic. I don't know if he still is or not, but he's still alive and everything, and we get along quite well now, because over the years I just had to forgive him, because it was the anger and hatred that I had in my heart toward my parents was actually eating me up and destroying me, and it was going to kill me. And so I realized that I had to be able to move on past it. So I had to forgive him and my mom as well. And it was hard. And I finally one day, a few years ago, just on purpose forgave them. And I said, I have to forgive them and anyone else who's done me any wrong, because that was killing me. It was, I was wanting out, and I wanted out from the pain, and I just wanted to end my life for so many years, and like my brother had done, and I didn't feel like I was ever going to be able to have a good life for so many years, even after I quit doing the drugs. And so, depression was a huge problem. I should have got some help. I should have reached out to get a professional counselor or therapist, because I didn't trust anybody. So I thought that that these therapists and counselors were going to probably just use my information to hurt me, and that was my idea behind it. I thought, they're just going to use it and hurt me with it. So I'm not going to go tell anybody, right? And so really that's just wrong, because I could have got help from someone who really cared and who wanted to see me go on to have a good life, and this could have happened years ago instead of, more like just recently. So I just say, to everyone out there, just make sure you find someone to talk to, even if you don't trust the therapists and counselors. Get a really good support group. Go to some of these support groups that are out there. You can find them online, And there's people just like you and me who are dealing with the same things and have good resources, good references, and they have good ideas on how to help ourselves, right? And then if you're feeling down, you have somebody to talk to, right? Because they're in the same boat, so they understand where you're coming from. So it's just so important that we have these people in our lives who care. Because, in my own personal life, I really don't have actually anyone in my immediate area that actually cares. And I hate to say that, but it's so true. Even my family they don't care that I'm doing this show or talking about what I'm talking about, and they probably don't care that I suffered as a child, and they don't care. They saw it. They witnessed the abuse. They witnessed it. They knew it was happening, and they just didn't care. And it was, I guess, because they were so screwed up themselves that they didn't really know how to help me. You know what I mean? They didn't know how to even as an adult, to come around and say, look, we know what mom did to you, we know what dad did to you, and we're sorry we couldn't help you, and you know what I mean? So I have no one in my immediate life that I can call on for help with this stuff. So I had to reach out to strangers, and they've become more my family than my own family. So that's all I can say. They care more about me on a daily basis, care about what I'm doing, where how I'm feeling. Than my own family does, right? Because our family was just so dysfunctional, and we even today don't get along, except for we just pretend that everything's okay, right? Because that's the only way we can actually manage to be in the same room together. So, I mean, this is the thing. I know this happens to people. It's not just our family, and I know that there's people out there suffering like that. And, I just say, keep reaching out and get some help. It's so important. And you do want to have a good life. Everyone deserves it. I study child rights, human rights at MRU, and I'm going to continue right on going to school, and I'm going to, keep learning and just keep moving to help fight for child rights, help fight for human rights, and just keep passing the word to people, that they do deserve a good life. It's part of the human rights, the right to life and the right to a good life, the right to a healthy life. And if you've never been shown that or given the coping skills to get that, then you need to get it. You need to do it yourself, and that's what I did, And you know what? I'll say it. By the grace of God, I'm still here, and I know a lot of my friends aren't, and a lot of my family members aren't. So that's why I'm doing this show. And it's so important that we all know that we have a right to get help, and we have a right to have a good life. And you do not want to allow someone to abuse you. And it doesn't matter whether it's a parent or a neighbor or a friend, a family member. They do not have the right to abuse you. So you have to make sure you get good people in your life. That's all I can say. It's so important. Here's some numbers. Al-Anon, Alateen. You can find their information at www.al-anon, A-N-O-N, at .alateen, A-L-A-T-E-E-N.org. So that's www.al-anon.alateen.org, or you can type into your browser Al-Anon. It'll come right up. Co-Anon, and that's www.co-anon.org, and that's for friends and family of cocaine addicts. The Al-Anon's for alcoholics, right? Alcoholics Anonymous. Then there's Suicide Crisis and Suicide Prevention. I love this website, www.suicide.org. That is Kevin Caruso's website. He's an awesome guy, and I just love what he says on his website. He's like, I love you, and I will never stop fighting for you. And anyone who says that, I just love them. So, check that out. And suicide is never the answer. You remember that, my friends. And post-traumatic stress disorder, this is Michelle Rosenthal. She has a website called Heal My PTSD, www.healmyptsd.com. And she is 25 years post-traumatic stress disorder free. And she knows all about it. She is a counselor, she's a therapist, and she knows all about it. That's a great website for anyone who's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And there is We Are Adult Survivors of Child Abuse and Neglect. www.wearesurvivors.org, which is adult survivor news story, survivors, but feel safe, all kinds of kids on there. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dream Catchers for Abused Children, and I am so happy to stand with them. Please check their website out. They have so many resources and so much information on child abuse prevention, how to report it, what to do to talk if a child confides in you that they've been abused or that they are being abused. There's so many important things on there that a person needs to know, and that is, you just go type into your browser www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com, and that's a great website, lots of info on there. And I just hope you guys have a great day. I'll be on in a few minutes with Mount Bethel Christian Worship and Fellowship, just some Bible study and reading this morning. And I'll be back on Monday morning, 5:30 in the morning, one child abuse survivor to another, just for 15 minutes. And I hope you can join me then. Have a great day. Take care of yourselves, everybody. And remember, keep that hope alive. Bye-bye.